Welcome to the Astro Guy podcast. I'm not an expert, I'm an amateur like you. I'm here to learn and here to teach. So let's enjoy the ride together. Carpe Noctem, seize the night.
I'm your host, Wayne Zool, and this is the Astro Guy podcast, your place for all things astronomy and space. For all of you space enthusiasts out there, this is a pretty amazing time. 2022 has been a banner year for space exploration, with the successes of the James Webb Space Telescope, the DART mission, and of course, the successful completion of the Artemis 1 mission. Those three are just the tip of the iceberg. So in this episode, we'll look at some of the highlights of the various space missions we'll hear about and some exciting things that will be taking place in 2023. Last Christmas, the world got a gift when the James Webb Space Telescope, or JWST, was launched after years of delays. The weeks following the launch were filled with nail-biting anxiety, as hundreds of different components needed to operate perfectly. Had one thing failed, the mission would have been lost. Fortunately, the telescope unfolded and unfurled perfectly. In July of this year, the first images were released, showing us some of JWST's capabilities, along with amazing images of several objects seen in their best resolution at wavelengths that JWST is designed to study. Weekly, NASA will post images or data from the Webb, and it never gets old. First, we saw test images, and those were amazing, as they showed galaxies that had never been observed before. When the first science images came in, we saw amazing images of Stephan's quintet in the infrared that showed details that had never been seen before. It was simply stunning. The image of the cosmic cliffs located in the Carina Nebula is mind-boggling. You can easily get lost in the level of detail in the image. It's almost like you're floating just outside the nebula looking down at it. Just mind-blowing. But JWST does more than just take pretty pictures. It was able to observe the spectra of the atmosphere of an exoplanet. It observed the atmosphere of WASP 96b, and Webb was able to detect water vapor in the planet's atmosphere. JWST also sent an amazing image of the core of the spiral galaxy Messier 74. This object is popular among amateur astronomers, as this beautiful galaxy is face-on to us, and its well-defined spiral arms are easy to make out. But the details that Webb was able to coax out of this galaxy are simply spectacular, and it's a glimpse of what great images and discoveries JWST will continue to make. As I was writing this episode, NASA released Webb's first deep field image, called the JWST Advanced Extragalactic Survey, or JADES. The area imaged is located in and around the same area that the Hubble Space Telescope's ultra-deep field is. Scientists used Webb's NIRCam instrument to observe the field in 9 different infrared wavelength ranges. From these images, the team searched for faint galaxies that are visible in the infrared, but whose spectra abruptly cut off at a critical wavelength. Another simply amazing image that you can easily get lost in looking at all the different galaxies. But JWST was not the only excitement that graced 2022. On September 26th, the DART, or Double Asteroid Redirect Test mission, successfully completed its mission when it slammed into Dimorphos, the moonlet of the asteroid Didymos. Not long after the impact, the effects of the collision were obvious with the dust trail that was observed with Hubble and other telescopes. The goal of the mission was to slam the spacecraft into Dimorphos at a speed of just under 15,000 miles per hour. The theory was that doing this should change the orbit of Dimorphos by about 10 minutes. After about a month, it was determined that the moonlet's orbit was changed by 32 minutes. This proved that with enough notice, that we could intercept an Earth-bound asteroid and slightly alter its orbit so that it would safely miss us. In 2024, the European Space Agency will launch Hera to Didymos, where it will arrive in 2026 to make detailed observations of both bodies and the effects of the impact with DART. 2022 also saw the long-delayed Artemis 1 mission finally lift off. After several recent delays caused by faulty sensors, a hydrogen leak, and a hurricane, Artemis 1 finally rose off the launch pad at 1:47 a.m. on November 16th. Minutes later, the boosters successfully separated, and the SLS core continued towards Earth orbit. The core separated from the Orion spacecraft after about 8 minutes. 89 minutes after liftoff, the service module completed an 18-minute burn to start the craft on its journey to the moon. Artemis 1 is the first launch in a series of missions to see humans return to the moon. Artemis 1 was unmanned. However, there were 3 mannequins on board that were designed to study the impacts of launch, cruise, reentry, and splashdown on a person, as well as the effects of radiation. The Orion spacecraft launched 10 CubeSats and then performed 2 retrograde orbits of the moon before returning to Earth, where it safely re-entered the atmosphere and splashed down in the Pacific Ocean on December 11th. The Orion capsule is currently being transported back to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where it will be carefully pored over by scientists and engineers to study how well it did. As of now, we know that the craft used less fuel than anticipated, and other than a couple of minor issues during flight, it met all of the mission's objectives. Artemis 2 will likely launch sometime in 2024, and will essentially be a repeat of Artemis 1, except that the capsule will be crewed with astronauts. Artemis 3 should take place in 2025, and will feature a crewed landing on the surface of the moon, the first in more than 50 years. On May 19th, Boeing successfully launched their Starliner capsule on an unmanned test flight that safely splashed down 5 days later. Boeing expects to launch its first manned Starliner mission in 2023. China completed construction on their space station, Tiangong, and it is now manned and operating. See, I told you that this was a busy year for space travel and missions. Well, 2023 has a lot going on as far as space missions are concerned. Arianespace's Ariane 6 rocket has had several delays and is expected to make its maiden flight in 2023. It is being targeted to be competitive price-wise to SpaceX as far as the cost of launching a satellite into low Earth orbit, so that should be pretty interesting to watch. Several other agencies and private companies are planning maiden voyages or launching new rockets in 2023. Blue Origin will launch its New Glenn, which is a heavy launch vehicle capable of delivering 45 metric tons into low Earth orbit. The 2-stage rocket is designed to be reusable, and each New Glenn should be able to fly 25 times. SpaceX's Starship is scheduled to make its maiden orbital flight in January. The exact date hasn't been announced yet, but should be soon. The orbital test will see the booster making a soft landing on the Gulf of Mexico, while the Starship itself will make one full orbit around the Earth and will make a water landing near Hawaii. SpaceX will also fly the Polar Dawn mission no earlier than March 2023. This will be a commercial Crew Dragon mission that will feature the very first commercial spacewalk. SpaceX also plans to conduct a lunar flyby using a Starship. The flight, tentatively named the Dear Moon Project, will be crewed and will include 6 to 8 artists that are being invited to observe and then relay their experiences after the mission. Between April 14th and the 30th, the European Space Agency plans to launch JUICE, the Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer, which is designed to explore Jupiter and its large moons. It should arrive at Jupiter in 2031 and orbit the planet for 3 years before firing its engines to change its course so that it can orbit and study Jupiter's moon Ganymede. On September 21st, 2023, we will see the OSIRIS-REx return sample coming back to Earth. The OSIRIS-REx mission was designed to visit an asteroid, then touch down on the asteroid to collect samples and return the samples to Earth. If all goes well, the return capsule will enter the atmosphere at the precise angle to allow it to slow down enough to deploy its parachutes so that it can land safely in the Utah desert, bringing with it those precious samples of the asteroid Bennu to be studied by scientists. In October, NASA plans to launch the Psyche spacecraft that will visit the metallic asteroid Psyche. This will be launched on a Falcon Heavy, which are always fun and exciting to watch. The mission should provide us with information about asteroids as well as planetary formation, so stay tuned for more information regarding upcoming space missions. Well, that's all for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that you found our time together to be fun and helpful. If you have questions or episode suggestions, please email us at astroguypodcast@gmail.com or leave us a text or a voicemail at 973-404-0380. If you're not already a member, please join the Astro Guy Podcast group on Facebook. You'll find other members, videos, blogs, and useful information there for your enjoyment. You can also visit our YouTube channel, the Astro Guy Podcast, for past episodes and other surprises. Please subscribe. Please consider leaving us a review on your podcast platform. It helps us to get new listeners. Thank you again for listening, and may your skies be clear. As always, Carpe Noctem, seize the night.
I'm Wayne Zool, and this was the Astro Guy Podcast. Thank you for listening. As always, your questions, comments, and suggestions are welcome. Keep wondering. Keep your eyes on the sky. Have fun. Carpe Noctem. Seize the night.